Good afternoon, everyone. Talking so much about vanity, I was like, Vikram, which side is your good side? You know, all of us have that. And he's like, all sides work for me. So, yeah, really, thank you so much for doing this. And thanks, Vani and Tai, for having us. Um, I think I want to really kick this off by asking you, Vikram, when you looked at the ChatGPT moment, you know, there were other founders, and I've heard your story a little bit as well, saying, okay, how is this really going to impact what I'm doing at Cast 24, and how did that really pivot how you were thinking about, selling cars, both to, of course, your consumers, but also from an internal process standpoint?
First of all, thank you for having me here. Excited to be here. For us, when I think I came across ChatGPT for the first time, I think in an internet business, while we are selling car, but we are still dealing with hundreds of thousands of transactions a year. And one thing that we missed, always have missed, is that we have not been able to build a deeper connect with the customer, especially in India, where a customer, when they are buying or selling the car, it's more than a transaction. It's also a lot of emotions attached to the whole process. And with an organization that's already at like hundreds and thousands of cars, we have struggled with building that connect that people aspire to. And I think for me, that really got me excited because I could see that we could use this technology and collaborate with what we do here and really start building something that also makes it more human as opposed to just being a transaction. In fact, that was one of the first things we did 1 year ago, and that was like very close to my heart, was building a chatbot on our app that can answer queries of people looking to buy a car. And as you can expect, it often starts with, I have no idea what to buy, can you suggest, right?
Yeah.
These things have been harder for us to handle, otherwise led through humans. Practically impossible when millions of users are asking you these questions every day. But I think now it's possible to do that.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. Personalization is really a big promise that models bring, and of course, at OpenAI, we constantly talk about personalization in the commerce experience, but also just in personal productivity. And I also know Cars 24, you also use ChatGPT Enterprise across Cars 24 as well. So would love to understand a little bit more about how have you seen that lift within the organization, because there are all these various reports that have come out more recently saying there is a little bit of thinking about it's just in a pilot phase, it's only a promise, we're really not seeing that outcome driven productivity and efficiency that model companies like ourselves are promising. And I for one can see that in my personal life, but you being such an avid user and an AI leaning organization, I would love to get your views, and also what challenges have you faced?
Yeah, I think conviction comes from your own experience. Like you said, for me, I use it. I think 4 5 hours a day. It's very much part of whether I'm doing a meeting or whether I'm brainstorming, whether I'm even like in that mode where I just want to be locked in a room and thinking about what ideas. So I think it's become part and parcel, and I feel the same for the teams as well. And we have had situations where we got the licenses, and I literally made my team do an A/B test without telling anybody. We switched off some licenses, and there was a big uproar. Right?
Oh,
I
wow,
think
so
that
that's a good indication.
exactly. I think like long time ago, I had read about this mental model that one of the ways to think about whether a product is actually making an impact is that if it disappears, how badly do you miss it? And I think in our case, we have seen it few times where I have done this experiment, switched it off, and see how people react to it. And I think, if I look at my next, 40, 50 people that I work closely with at Cast 24, I think everyone is doing a significant. I mean, it's your second brain. It's a co-pilot that I don't think I or the next 50 people I work closely with, I know they can't live without it.
And the reason I bring that up is, I want to make this conversation, very actionable. There's enough sort of gyan, as they say, that you can get on the internet. But I think somebody who's actually done this for himself and for his company, which is extremely successful, I also want to be able to bring out where there are challenges in getting value out of our models and where it's easy to do, right? Because the promise is big, but often people don't know how to really take that journey. So if you can just maybe talk a little bit more about, Vikram, when you've actually brought in these models into the company, the change management that you've actually had to go through, and then also, what is some of, maybe one or two anecdotes where you've used the open AI models to, let's say, even do the chatbot that you're talking about, or even creating far more enhanced experiences for your users. Where, what is your advice for people who are going down that path today?
I think, so first of all, I think in Cars 24, we have pretty much made it mandatory, right? I mean, if you're not future looking, then it's a big red flag. So I
Yeah, I
think
mean, it's a technology which is here now, so you better like adopt it and start working with it.
it's real. I think, like I said, right, I can't imagine myself without an AI assistant helping me through my work throughout the day. And it's every day, right? Even this morning, like I wake up and I think the first thing I do is go to brainstorming, and it's really helpful. So one example that for example, to start the change management, I told my team is that earlier when I had to send a note to my team members, there are 6,000 employees at Cast 24, I would first write it, then I would sleep over it, then I would send it to my co-founder or anybody, any other senior leader, get their point of view, make edits, then sleep over it. So the whole process would take like 2 to 3 days to send a memo out, for example. Now
Right.
it takes 2 hours because
Wow.
because all the brainstorming, like for example, one of my favorite prompts is, ask anything that my employee would be thinking about when reading this memo, right? I think it collectively gives you a lot of things to think about that you would otherwise ask others. So I think it's a big productivity saving tool. Specifically to Cast 24, I think as we started imagining, new ideas are coming up every day. Most commonly people often talk about implementing chatbots, right? I think which is the most common use case. But obviously coding, right? Coding is a big use case. I think all the coders at Cast 24 are now using an AI
Codex.
coding tool, right?
Yeah.
They're using it, and without that, obviously, they don't have a life without that, right? And they are very clear that we need this, right? Similarly, but there are a lot of product use cases that have emerged. So to give you an example, very specific to Cars 24, something that I hadn't imagined myself, uh, used cars are cars which could be 15 years old and could be a 6 months old car that comes to us. Across these cars, there are thousands of variants across several years, across several ranges of kilometers those cars have done, etc. So one of the challenges we have always had is that the variant, right? Every car like Maruti, Suzuki, LXI, etc. You remember that your car is a Swift, but what you don't remember is that your car is an LXI. But that makes a big difference to the pricing of the car.
Sure.
So the customer would get it wrong at the time of putting that input in. Our own team members would often get it wrong. And our accuracy was 50%. Just 2 days ago, my team was telling us that using GPT, we have increased the accuracy to 95%. Right?
Fantastic.
And
Yeah.
something that we were struggling for years was a manual exercise. And this is not even about optimizing team members, or it's about getting genuine gains that benefits customers. So this is one example that I was blown away by. Second example is very specific to us. Uh, for us, like getting to know the price of a car depends on inspecting the car. Now we have struggled and worked hard to build a lot of models to detect damages, dents, rust, cracks on the windshield, and we built them to a varying degree of success. But once we integrated the LLMs, I think our accuracy is shot up significantly. And we are using a combination of own models and LLMs, and we have now been able to deploy them at a much larger scale than what we had done earlier. So the the projects that were like a multi-year projects have now become like a couple of months long projects where we are seeing significant gains. And there are several other examples. I think at Cast 24 we are doing really deep work on the voice calling. There are several there are several scenarios where it just we could not even call the customer because it's just impossible to call so many customers and know what they want, right? We are now able to basis customers' own signals, when they want a call, we are able to call them back as well.
That's great.
Otherwise, earlier, all our processes were you will message us and we'll message you back. But when you're looking to buy a car, many times consumers do want to get called, right?
Yeah.
But humanly, it was just impossible.
Yeah. So just like making sure that you're able to serve your customers at scale, also reduce time in some of your clearly your communication to your employees, and I think thirdly, just all of the lifts you've seen in assessing cars and prices, and also when it comes to data collection. And the reason I summarize it that way is because I think data collection is certainly one area where we're seeing a lot of unlock, even in the work I'm doing along with nonprofits and government. Portion Tracker is actually a very big app that the government is driving, and it's really in rural India where Anganwadi workers take in basic information about rural populations around health and nutrition and all of that. And you're right, just using our voice models has increased the accuracy of that data. And why is that important? Is because all other decisions that are made for that village and that society is actually made based on that collective data. And if the foundation itself is flawed, it's often that the analytics don't really unlock the right kind of advice. So I just want to draw a parallel from different verticals, how our models are really delivering value. I'd love to also talk about Aero, which is at the heart of your AI engine in Cars 24. And I'd also love to understand, what is it that you saw that these are things that I cannot solve without AI at all, and this is now core and AI first.
Yeah, I think somewhere along the line, our team members said that if you have to really, everyone is buzzing with ideas on how they can implement with AI. But we have to really also go bottom up, because top down you can do 5-6 core projects. So Aero was built by Jayesh and their team, who works on dedicatedly on AI internally at Cars 24. And the whole idea was to create a plug and play self-serving tool where anybody can go write a prompt, put in certain set of conditions, and you could create a chat bot or a voice bot on the go. You don't need a developer, you don't need a product manager, you don't need a designer, you don't need anyone. And what has that done is that, for example, if a design team wants to now do a small survey with the consumers, right, they could literally create that survey, switch it on, and the survey goes out, the responses come in. So a lot of grunt work that they had to do, which would take weeks and months, has now literally come down to like a couple of days, if not less.
And you also feel far more control and autonomy over what you want to do, right? You're not dependent
absolutely.
on a technology team to just kind of keep delivering for you. You can do it on your own.
Absolutely. So for example, this Diwali, I used Aero to set up a campaign to send a voice message in my voice to all the employees.
Sweet.
Personalizing it, calling them by their name, entering some information about them, which makes it more personal. Humanly, I can't talk to 6,000 people,
Yeah.
right? But I could do it using Aero. And now I don't have to depend on anybody to do that for me. So I think the use cases are limitless, right? And I think once you get into it, then your mind starts working with all kinds of ideas like this. And I know that the teams on daily basis are doing so much of different kind of things that it's like amazing to hear what all they are doing with it.
You're so right. Just vibe coding with Codex has, I think, changed lives of myself. I mean, Vani is an engineer, so it's easy for her to do this. But for someone like me who comes from a commerce background, I am now actually just with prompting and being able to use Codex, creating very cool UIs and being able to solve and build apps that I think will be really helpful for me. So, you're right. Democratizing this, intelligence which was limited to a select few now has opened up the gates for everyone to bring their ideas alive and use Codex to really put it at the forefront. I think the other thing that's really changing is, of course, commerce and how, commerce within ChatGPT and just within OpenAI models and the way you reach customers. You no longer have to go outside the platform to make those purchases. How are you really seeing the future with that?
This struck me when I realized that I had started using GPT to get recommendations on vitamins, to what vitamins should I be taking. Like earlier it was essentially from a list that I might have got from somewhere, but I hadn't done my own research. Now when I started doing my own research, I started realizing that like this doesn't really work for me. I need something else. And when I started doing that research, I essentially started using the recommendations from GPT in doing my buying. And that's when I wondered, and this is like probably 8, 9 months ago now, or probably a year ago.
Right.
I asked my team, can you please tell me how much searches are coming to us from GPT? That's essentially growing 50 to 100% month on month, right? And probably often faster. And I think the number is really underrepresented because uh, GPT does not necessarily explicitly gives you links. So if you are, for
Sure.
example, looking for cars, it might say, hey, you can find these cars at Cars 24, but it may not explicitly give you the link.
And an out
So
right from there.
so you may basically just get, okay, I should go check Cars 24, and then you will go to the browser and type it in. So the actual share of influence or the people using that pathway is growing pretty rapidly. I mean, if I look in my office, I think uh, the traditional search has gone down dramatically. People are just on GPT for everything.
Yeah.
So I think as a commerce, and we are building the app inside GPT that you guys recently launched as well, because I think this is the future. I think this is the first time where, earlier, we had this debate where people say, oh, we have tried WhatsApp bots, and, the commerce doesn't happen on that. But I think the difference is this time there is genuine, legit advice, and you can actually go through the flow is much easier than what it was ever on any other chat platform.
Yeah.
So I think this is indeed going to be big.
And then complete the whole process just within the same same product, right? And that really changes efficiency for an average user. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that that pathway is not clear, because I think with what we recently launched called Atlas, which is our browser, I think for someone like me who thinks of a car as just a tool that gets me from place A to place B and often doesn't do very much research, I'm actually seeing myself engage a lot more, because within that window today, I can do comparisons. I have ChatGPT with me. I can carry my personal assistant everywhere. It understands my preferences, which brands do I like. And so I think that pathway is getting even clearer now, along with commerce, but also with Atlas, right? Because it brings along the memory of ChatGPT, along with whatever I'm trying to search for in that moment, and really open up on the right side everything in terms of recommendations from Cars 24, and also being able to make those comparisons across platforms on pricing. So how do you really see that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest exercise we now make everyone do internally is to basically use the agent mode or use Atlas and make the GPT browse our website and give us suggestions on everything that's broken. I think that's the very first step where even the user feedback
Yeah.
we are able to source a lot directly. So I think more and more people will use agents or these browsers to get their work done or get them to like final point where they just want to give it a look. So yeah, absolutely. I think this is what I think the early adopters are already doing in their workflows. So
True.
it's a matter of time, probably. Not, I don't think it's even a matter of years now, right?
I agree.
It's probably a matter of months where the adoption of agents is already exploding, and it's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how many people have used Atlas here in this room? If you could just kind of raise your hands. Amazing. Yeah, pretty cool. We have 2 minutes, and I think we should, Vikram, can we maybe take a few questions from the audience? What do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. If there are any questions, would love to take that on. Can we just take the mics around? I see somebody that side. Yeah, and we have one here as well.
I hope I'm I hope I'm audible. My name is Anuj Batra, and I'm part of a couple of startups uh, working on AI across different categories. Where do you think are the possibilities for a brand like yours, where you have a footprint of 205 stores, if I'm not mistaken? Am I right? Yeah. So within these 205 stores, do you think there is a possibility of aligning the phygital AI using the chatbots and the robots together to bring out a great experience?
We are already doing a lot of experiments. For example, from time to time asking our staff on the ground to allow the voice recording so that they can get feedback in real time on how their pitch to the customer was, what was good and what was not so good, what they can do better. So I think there are a lot of other opportunities as well. So for example, for us, when the cars customers come and see physically, all that matters is the cars are clean. For us, that process is now automated. Earlier, a person we had to essentially, we didn't know, but we had to believe that all the cars are kept clean. It's very tedious process otherwise. Now, a person just goes, makes a video, and let the AI do the rest of the work to tell us whether the cars are clean or not. And several other things, right? For example, when someone is buying a car, lending is a big part of the whole process. You buy it on loan. Again, a lot of processes around document reading, etc. Still a lot of documents are needed in physical, or you need copies of that. Now it's very easy to read them. OCRs may or may not work entirely well, but with models, you get like a very high degree of accuracy, which reduces a lot of manual operations.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so very much. A follow-up question to that. Do you think a role coming in further for these, digital AI world to be able to help sell the products in an era where generally the salespeople at the store, they oversell, undersell, there are times when they are maybe selling out insurance, they are not giving the right kind of features or, detailing out the product very well to the customers.
I think there's proactive and there's reactive. I think proactively on our apps now you could do a lot more than what you could do before, because you don't want to stuff your website with too much information that a customer gets lost in. But now essentially you could have a help prompt everywhere, right? Like for example, if you are selecting a car and you are curious about insurance, you could start with a chatbot right there and ask anything about insurance. So I think that proactiveness ensures that potentially there is much less mis-selling, because customer is more informed on their own as opposed to depending on the person on the field entirely.
Awesome.
Great.
We can take
Thank
one
you.
more question. Yeah, back there. Oh, here as well. We have a question up front.
Shall I go
Yeah,
first?
so
Go ahead. Where
yeah, so with all of the GPT integrations that you mentioned,
Could you just give us a little bit of context? Your name, what do you do,
Yeah,
so we know where
so-
you're coming from?
my name's Suyash and I work in tech in the US. And my question to you is, have you found any use case where it's becoming expensive, like using GPT as an integration? You've reached that scale with it that you're saying that, okay, now we got to figure out ways to go deeper one layer and then find out a way to reduce cost, if at all if you've reached that scale.
I think when compared to those operations running manually, I think so far it's been significantly cheaper.
Okay.
And of course there's 5, and we can always switch back to the older models as well. So or to simpler models. So I think we have found it to be fairly cost effective. Also, even in some experiments where it's not, I think the view we take internally is to look few years out and not just here and now. Because if you could do something better from a customer perspective, and even if it is at par on cost or slightly higher, I think let it run. Maybe not run it on like 100% of audience users, but probably on 10%, so that you can continue to improve. And once the cost starts making sense, you roll it out entirely.
Yeah, because eventually it will get cheaper. And
It
yeah.
already is. So, yeah, we're moving along. Quickly, last question, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Vikram and Pragya, for sharing tens of use cases on how we could do it in our companies. I come from an ad tech background, so we're selling online ads, and we're looking at how a sales agent could actually do all that, what's your budget, how much, where do you want to spend, who's your TG, etc., and so on. On the other side, there are client side or the advertiser side. They are also coming up with their own agents who might be able to deal with these multiple vendors who are trying to sell to them. So it's going to be AI agent versus AI agent while making a deal. So how do you see this panning out? Do you think this is realistically going to actually, one, efficiently do it at the right cost, at the right scope, which are deliverably possible, and so on? And do you see the future actually becoming like that, where even sales which can be standardized, but it never has been. It's been very people specific so far. Those things can also be used, like can AI actually do that part of sales also?
So internally for us, we have started tracking a metric is how many employees we have and how many agents we have. So there are probably hundreds of agents already running at Cars24, and we are right now we have, for example, with voice calling, we are also at a point where an autonomous agent is transferring calls to another autonomous agent. Because an agent specializes in car selling and another one specializes in insurance and another one specializes in lending and so on. So I think I didn't entirely get your question on how it will work out, but I think we are already in a world where there are multiple agents collaborating, talking to each other inside an org or across the orgs as well.
Sure, no, that's helpful. So basically the question was on sales teams now getting transferred from people to AI agents, and even the people who are actually going to write that check, your customers or your B2B clients, would also have AI agents basically to
Pretty much. I think
deal with them.
that's where the world is moving, and that's what Vikram's referring to. I think you will have, and I feel like, to your point, what you were saying, that initially processes that should be standardized are not. I think with agents, we can actually serve even more flexible use cases, because you have the ability now to not depend on human capacity, but just making sure that agents are far better placed to answer some of those questions. But you want to, I think, Vikram?
Just one thing to add, I think often the mistake that we all make is to think binary. Either automated fully or not automated at all. Like looking at each example that it doesn't work to say, oh, it doesn't work across the board. I think that's what we consciously stay away from doing. We are saying we are going ahead with AI implementation across the board. Some processes are at 90% implementation, some are at 10%. But gradually every process goes and gets there. We don't think of success as either absolute, every call is now done by an agent and not a human being. That's not how we think about life. Otherwise, you will start and stop immediately.
Yeah, a very
Hi,
balanced
sorry,
outlook.
I'm also
Thank you so much.
quickly gonna barge in with a question. Yeah, towards your right, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am Ojasvi Gupta I'm a journalist at Financial Express, and I think my question would be suitable to the two of you, since both of you are deeply associated in the industry. So essentially, with the MeitY's latest draft rule of having of having AI labeling, right? And it's said to be a good move in terms of labeling and then eradicating deepfakes, so to say. But how do you think that the creative industry is going to look at it? Because for audio, visuals, and everything, at least there has to be a 10% of an image label that says that this content is AI generated. Do you think your customers, your viewers, and your audience, they're going to have this contention that, okay, is this AI generated? Are they going to be rigid with that? Maybe with the kind of content that they're going to consume right now? Or do you think it's simply going to be a good go in the sense that they're just becoming much more aware?
I think this is a debate that we have had internally about the voice agents as well, or the chat agents, whether we should tell consumers explicitly who they are talking to. So far as it turns out, customers have been pretty comfortable talking to agents, knowing that they are agents. Again, is everyone comfortable? No, but I would say 7 or 8 out of 10 are fairly comfortable. We do have cases where a customer, when they realizes they are talking to an agent, hangs up. But now I think we are pretty explicit. We explicitly say that you are talking to an agent, right, and not to a human. Again, on content, I think internally, I don't know how consumers would react to content. It's still early days, and Sora videos, I think, are already taking up the internet by storm. But internally, for example, I use my own video avatar to send out a lot of messages to my team members. And I and my team members are using that very freely. To, for example, wishing them on Diwali, sharing our monthly performance, when we are starting a new project, which is very important to the company. A lot of the times when I was just writing a message and sending across, but that doesn't get conveyed to the front line. I think now I'm using my digital avatar, which is doing the talking. So I don't have to shoot video every time.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening, and thanks, Vikram, for being such an AI advocate and also sharing all your learnings. I think this is super insightful. I really see the trick in using a lot of our models is just not getting access to it, but really knowing how do you get the best out of them. So thank you for sharing that path, and really enjoy the conversation with and all the questions that we got from the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Be curious. This is the future.
Oh yeah, for sure.